Shit, I can't find the intro anymore, so we're just gonna roll with it. I don't know what happened to it.
I was like,
there it is.
Welcome to the program.
Here we go.
The first pick in the 2020 draft.
To win a national championship and build them into a Super Bowl team. Welcome to the program.
All right, as you could have seen just a second ago, Carl and Boz are here with me. As I posted in the chat, we are going to go over some of the changes coming for the new season here for the program. I'm going to let Carl and Boz do most of the talking here. I will say really quick, as Kane posted it in the channel earlier about the awards, so I went ahead and looked those up just to give you guys an idea. That is the only thing that we are moving over from the college season last year since we didn't play it out. But if you had a player that won either the Heisman, the Maxwell, the Biletnikoff, the Doak Walker, Davey O'Brien, or the John Mackey Award, you still get those extra bonus points in recruiting this year when recruitment opens up. So for that, in League One, that is Kane Fassel. I apologize, Kane, because I know I said it wrong the first time. Devonta Smith. Now, because he won the Maxwell, Biletnikoff, and the Heisman, you only get the points for the Heisman, but that is the most points. So you will get a huge uptick when you're recruiting. I believe it's any player with the Heisman thing. You get the bonus points for all of them, not just the one position.
Only wide receivers from Florida.
Yeah, that too. Well, that too. You get an extra boost for that. So in League Two, that is Jared Wackerly. He had Devonta Smith. For the Doak Walkers, so you get the extra recruiting points toward running backs this year. That is Skip Newton and Matt Hicks. Skip Newton in League One, Matt Hicks in League Two, having Najee Harris. The Davey O'Brien Award, so you get extra points toward quarterbacks. Mac Jones was the winner of that, so that is myself in League One and Teach in League Two. And the John Mackey, which went to Kyle Pitts, that is to Ray Garvin in League One and Dan Mailer and Ryan McDowell in League Two. So they get the extra recruiting points toward the tight end that will work this year once recruiting starts up. Got all kinds of different stuff going with recruiting and everything. So whichever of you wants to go first, go right ahead.
Carl, I think it's going to be on you quite a bit. You're the one who
typed up all
the bylaws.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is going to be on me. I was trying to type in those awards so I can remember them for next season.
I've got them. I'll send them to you. I've got the list saved on here. I'll send you a text of them. I've got them.
Beautiful. So if you go into the program bylaws, it says currently under construction because that is exactly what it is. I've gone through and highlighted any area that we're working on or that has changed for next season. But before we get to that, we do have the cut down day coming up. So I believe we're doing it 2 weeks after the final day for commitments. So the last day that guys can say that they're going to the NFL, that deadline, 2 weeks after that, we'll have our show that will announce who's leaving and everything like that. So we can keep 20 guys now, correct?
No, are we doing that this year? I thought we were going to wait and do it. It's still 15. You can only recruit up to 20 guys. That was supposed to be for later. Okay. You can only keep 15 of so teams like Maryland, North Carolina, I believe they had more. Rice had extra. If you went over the 15 limit, you can only keep the 15. That's not changing. So what you have to do is let Carl or whomever know, PJ. So Monday is the 18th of the NFL one. Real life, all players have to let the NFL or their college football teams know that they're declaring or staying in school by the 18th, which is Monday, whatever that is now, 4 or 5 days away from now. We are not going to have you guys submit your stuff to us till, the first week of February, pretty much. So that's up to Carl and Boz because they're the ones who have to handle that stuff so they can let you know. But we will do a show on that Wednesday, which is February the 3rd, talking about that. So when do you guys want that submitted to you?
That is a great question. Probably not the week of the 18th, but the week after that Wednesday. So we have a full week that we can sort it out before we get
the 30th.
To that.
The 30th is the Saturday before. So is that give you guys enough time?
In front.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So you guys have till the 30th, which is the Saturday after. So you got a full week and some to decide what 15 players you're keeping because Carl and Boz have to get that set up on the sheets. And then we all know who's going back into the pool because obviously some teams, you'll at that point know how many players are leaving for the NFL as well. So you may have had 18 players leave, only got to keep 15. You'll have to pick up 3 players in the free agency pool, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But we want to get a good idea of everything going on before we change up any rosters or anything else with the free agent pools.
Yep. So once we get that cut down list and you have your 15 or your 12 or whatever it is, once you submit that to us, then we will move towards that deadline where we'll announce who's going where. And then we will be creating a sheet of any incoming recruit for each league that got cut that you can pick up because they won't be in Fantrax yet. And we will have a off-season budget for you to be able to fill your roster with players who are still in college. You can't pick up a guy who's wasn't on anybody's roster but's going to the NFL because those guys will be out. But you can pick up any freshman going into a sophomore season, a redshirt freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, if they're staying in school. So you can pick up any of those guys during that period because you probably don't want 19 freshmen on your team starting next season. You want a little bit of guys who will get some playing time.
Yeah, and you want to use your FAB. We're going to split it between some you'll be able to use to our sheets for the freshmen, and the other you can put into Fantrax, but you have to budget it at the right amount. You can't do one over, and if they combine to be over the budget, that's just
so what we're going to do to make it easy for everybody is we're going to give you $100 in FAB on Fantrax if you want to scoop up any guy who's currently in college, and we'll give you $100 budget for any freshman who got cut or who didn't even make a team who you want to pick up to get your roster full once again.
Yeah, so just to make sure that everybody's on the same page here, say that for whatever reason, I don't know I'm trying to think. I'll use a guy from my team. Say I just, for whatever reason, I stupidly, and it is possible because I am stupid, I throw back Ibuka. I'm like, you know what? I'm not giving him his scholarship. He's going back into the free agent pool. You can then you have $100 of that you can use on him, or you could pick up, I don't even know who this player is, but some dude named, oh, well, never mind, because he's going to the NFL draft. I was trying to find someone who's not going to. Fuck, all these guys are in the NFL draft. Let's just say that Dax Milan from BYU did not go into the NFL draft. You can then use points on him as well in Fantrax to get him on your team. Yes, I will likely be keeping – actually, Austin, I will likely be keeping all of my defensive guys. So likely none of those guys are going back into the pool. I really want to build that top tier defense. So we'll have different ways for you guys to build your rosters back up. So don't freak out if you for whatever reason, well, not right. If you drafted heavily in the pre-draft, the draft last year, and a bunch of guys went to the NFL, you will be able to fill out your roster. We're not going to leave you with like 20 guys on your college team. You will be able to fill out your roster.
And you can submit $0 bids. So
yes.
If you need that many guys, or if you really want just one of them and then you don't care the rest of the way.
Yes. And I don't know if Carl said this, so I'll reiterate. If you have 15 guys, but you don't want to keep all 15, you don't have to. you can keep 12 and you can pick up other guys later. You don't have to say, because I think I hit right at 15 on my recruits. If there's obviously I'm not keeping the defensive guys, so I'd throw those guys back. That's just other freshmen or guys on Fantrax I can pick up. You do not have to keep all the guys that you, I guess, gave scholarships too. You can keep as many as you want. So Garrett, who I think had 15 or 16, he could literally throw all 16 back if he wanted to and go pick out all the kind of guys on Fantrax or any freshmen that were thrown back.
Kane's got a nice chirp on you there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the breakdown of what's going to happen over these next few weeks.
Yeah.
Now, going into next season, we're going to read the bylaws ourselves so we understand them fully. And we're going to utilize it. Most people, thank you to everybody who filled out that form. Most people said that they read the bylaws, which is great. If you didn't, definitely read them going into next year. I've highlighted the changes that are going to be happening going into next year. And I mean, it's going to be a lot easier to read. If you don't understand something, though, reach out to one of us three or Garrett. Garrett understands them. So which spot should we start on here? There's so many changes.
I mean, you're the one who updated all that stuff, so I guess go with you because I've got the list here. Let me see if I can pull the list back up from our.
Yeah, why don't you start with your first? Okay, the first one we'll go over is weekly waivers. So on the college
let's go with the
side,
easy stuff first. Yeah,
we're going to do weekly waivers. So rather than 2 designated weeks that you might end up missing because you weren't paying attention or whatnot, I know I missed some in some other leagues. It's weekly waivers. However, you can only pick up 4 players through that entire waiver period. You'll still have your $200 fab budget, but it stays at that. You pick up 4 guys right away in the first week. You don't get to pick up anybody the rest of the way. You wait till the end, or you think you missed that final designated week. You can still pick up until the end of the season, until bowl season.
Yeah, so that leaves it up to you guys. I know a couple people brought that up, and Garrett, Boz, and Carl, we all talked about it. Felt like you guys are probably right. It just makes more sense if you're paying attention earlier in the year, and some people aren't. And you're able to snag a guy that maybe somebody wasn't paying attention to. Good on you. So as Carl said, it's open all year long. You just get your 4 moves though. Once you do, you are done.
So make sure to fill out your roster during the off-season bids, because you can only make 4 claims over the season.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have 45 guys going into the season, and the off-season bids don't count towards that.
Yeah, and if there is for some reason something happens and you're not able to fill out your rosters, I will do my best to check League One side at least to make sure everybody has a full roster going into the season. And if not, I'll try and make sure that you guys get in a couple $0 bids or something to get your roster full before we go in. Because as Boz was just saying, we don't want someone to go in being short a bunch of players, and then you have to use your 4 just to fill out your roster.
Exactly. Great point. Also, weekly waivers will end prior to the program bowl season. So this is something new we're bringing out this year is bowl season, because everybody deserves to play in a bowl, whether or not you were in 12th place in your program side or you were in first place. So the way that we're going to decide the champion of each league is just like how the NCAA does it. So there's the national championship game, which will be the number 1 team from League One, number 1 team from League Two. But first and second in League One will face off in the Sugar Bowl. First and second in League Two will face off in the Rose Bowl, and then that will lead us into the national championship game and bowl season. You will face off against 12th place. If you're 12th, you face off against 12th place in the opposing program league. If you're 9th, you face off against 9th place. And as you can see, second versus second all the way, and we've named all the bowls for you. So those are all in the bylaws, but 12th place will be fighting for the Duke's Mayo Bowl because there is no trophy. It broke.
And so to give you guys, I know a couple people brought up that they wanted to see if we could do some kind of bowl season thing. So this is kind of our way. Now, it would only be really kind of 1 week. We didn't want to try and figure out it to go multiple weeks. So it'll likely be outside of the playoff stuff, which Carl was just talking about, which is already set up on there. The last week, it'll be the last week of the college football season. We will do our best to remind you guys because it'll be just like what we did in the NFL side this year, where me and Alfred started playing Jared for the championship, the NFL side. So we will do a good job or try to do a good job of reminding you guys of that. The winner of that will get 50 extra recruiting points in the first at any point. You can use at any point on any player. And when we say that, is in not just you get 50 extra points for the entire recruiting window. It'd be, I'll use Quinn Ewers, I'm probably going to use him multiple times in this because he's going to be the big name guy everybody wants in the next recruiting window. You can put that extra 50 points toward him altogether. So say the max is 200 that week, you can still take that 50 and put it toward him and get an extra 250. It's our way of encouraging you to participate in that bowl season and try and win, give you a little bit of extra oomph. Now, again, I know 50 recruiting points may not be a whole lot, but it's going to help some with that. And you can use it any time as well. It doesn't have to be that first week. Carl and Basel have that saved. You can use it at any time throughout the recruiting window of the next year.
Yep. So, I mean, the most common thing is going to be for you guys to use it in the off season. And it's not just the championship game. That winner gets 50 bonus recruiting points. Whoever wins in the 12v12, they get 50 bonus recruiting points, whether they're in League 1 or League 2. So they'll get that bonus. And instead of being able to put just 50 in the off season on Quinn Ewers, you can put 100 because those 50 that you won in the bowl game, they aren't part of those that max that you can put on a player. So you can put 100 instead of 50. So it definitely gives you a step up on your competition come recruiting season. Even if you were in 12th place.
Yeah.
You still have a shot.
Yeah, and the smart thing to do would just be to use it during the off season in case the player you're doing it for commits week 1.
Yeah.
Right, and we won't know bowl season. These points will go to the next season. And if you want to hold them over for week 1, you can. But like Boz said, you should use them week 1 because that guy's probably going somewhere else.
Yeah. And I know Carl kind of mentioned it earlier, but just to re-bring up, so we did put a cap on recruiting now so that someone can't end up with 30 prospects. So I don't think anybody went majorly over 15 this year, but the most that you can have is 20. We capped it at 20 just to give guys who might go over 15 a little bit, still a little bit of a shot to keep certain guys because they may have gotten a guy earlier in the season they really didn't want, end up with somebody else. And if they're capped at 15, we don't think it's fair because there might be someone else they want. You did that good of a job recruiting. You got the extra players. You should get a chance to choose. So nobody can go over 20 recruits altogether. Once you hit 20, you're just done.
Kane,
what do you got next?
Too much. I just saw Kane's tweet that he said he's going to get 20 receivers next year. Not his tweet, his message.
Oh. So I want to save
right.
the big topic for the last thing if we can. So what
you had? Yeah, I'll flip that one to the end.
So we haven't really discussed for sure where we're going to start that up yet. We need to get through all of I guess the best way to put it's going to depend on you guys. Depends on how quickly you guys are able to fill up your teams once we've done all of the cut downs and everything. Because once everybody's teams are full, I guess technically we can start recruiting right then. That's completely up to you guys. It's just however long the other people take to get Boz and Carl the info, because then we have to give them time to update the sheet too, because that's a lot of players they have to go in there and put on there. So say if everybody gets their stuff in on the 3rd, we're all good. Everybody updates their shit. We're ready to rock and roll by February 17th. Everybody has their rosters up to date. We still have to give Carl and Boz time to update the sheets so that they can get all the players in there. So give them a couple days, but really it's dependent on you guys getting all of your stuff done ahead of time so that we can start recruiting.
I mean, I would love to start recruiting right in February, but the thing is that recruit ranks are so different in February for 2022 class compared to August. So if we give you a sheet now or sooner in February with the order we have them in, it's going to completely change come August. And it makes more sense to give them to you in August, give you all off season to see who you want to recruit, because you only get 1,000 points in the off season. Yeah. So I'm sure that most schools will want to save those 1,000 for when they know more about the recruits.
Yeah, but that's something we'll discuss. Give you guys a firm date after we get through the roster part. Like, we want to get through that because I feel like that's going to take a little bit longer than some people may think, because a lot of people might have to fill up. I haven't even gone to look at mine yet, but I know for sure, at least, although players I'm expecting to declare, I'm already going to lose about 16 guys. So I already know that right now. I don't know how other teams look. So we got to get the rosters all situated before we worry about the next step.
Mhm.
Right, exactly. So we talked about award bonuses for next season. Game day visits are going to happen if
We have a season.
we have a real college season. So we didn't have it this year, obviously, because half the time your teams didn't actually play, or the game was suspended literally 3 days before. And if you were to invite a recruit, you didn't really get those bonus points, or you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So game day visits, it's on the bylaws, but here's how it works. Each team gets 2 weeks where they can choose to bring players to campus. During those weeks, you can bring up to 5 players to tour your campus and facilities, so a total of 10. Most people are going to want to take 5 each week of their 2 weeks. So if your college team wins, so I have the Maryland Ty Jordans, if they win that week, I get 40 points for all 5 of those guys who came. It just automatically gets assigned to them. If Maryland loses, then I only get 15 points for each of those 5 guys. And you get to pick which 2 weeks they come. You just have to tell either myself or Boz which week you're having those recruits visit and which recruits it is.
So I will say, and this might have been my poor writing here. When he says Maryland, he means like his fantasy team, Maryland, not the actual Maryland football team. So that might have been my bad on the writing part there to not separate that out. So when you invite those guys, it's up to your team winning that week, not the actual real life team in college. So if Boz brings up a bunch of players, he has to beat, say, me that week. And if he beats me, he gets those extra points. But if he doesn't, then those recruits just came up there and watched Tulane get their asses kicked by the Buckeyes. And they're like, I don't know if I really want to go play for this guy anymore. So it's all based on your fantasy team. But yeah, you have to let them know ahead. It can't be, we'll have to almost designate it as a recruitment show thing as well, like by Thursday, because I don't want anybody sending a message to Carl and Boz on like Saturday at 11 o'clock. Hey, these are the guys I'm bringing up this day. You got to give them fair enough time to get all that stuff situated. So we'll probably say by Friday nights, something like that, because we want to give you guys Wednesday to see the recruitment show. I don't want you to be like, hey, I want this guy to come, and then he ends up committing, although foreshadowing, that may not matter as much moving forward, but we'll get to that in a minute.
All right. So next up on our agenda, what did you have on yours?
The only thing I have left now is the big thing. I had the waivers, the 20, and the bowl games. So I may have.
Perfect.
When me and you were talking, there was a lot of stuff of me walking and not writing stuff down. So
we do have one other thing to touch on. We are having a new tiered system for 2021 in player commitments. So you remember last year, if there were 2 teams, it was 80-20. Didn't matter the points. If it was 3 teams, it was 70-20-10. Didn't matter the amount of points that either team put in. This year, we will be announcing how many points were put in by each of the final teams that are there, which would include their bonuses, the bonus points that they put towards them.
And that will matter specifically for something that will get brought up.
It will matter. So now we are introducing a tiered system depending on how many points are out there. So if the top teams are neck and neck, the percentages will change from that 80-20 to a 60-40 with 2 teams. It will switch to a 45-30-25 or a 40-30-30 depending on the third team. If they're close, if the third team trails by a large margin, it will be 60-35-5. Yeah. So a lot of percentages I'm throwing out there. It's all in the bylaws, so you can have it there. To be considered neck and neck, you have to meet the following requirements. You have to be within 5 points of the leader prior to individual teams putting 100 points on a player. So say that UNC and Rice are neck and neck on Quinn Ewers. In order for that to occur, UNC has 95 points on him. Rice has 90. So they're within that 5. They're neck and neck. It's 60-40. You have to be within 10 points of the leader between 100 points and 250 points. So Rice has 200. UNC has 210. They're neck and neck, 60-40. Anything greater than 250 individual points put on a player, you have to be within 20 points of the leader. So 360, 340. It makes it more even so that if you are that close, you don't just get shafted by that much, because that player is definitely looking at a coin going, okay, Emeka Egbuka, Oklahoma or Ohio State, flips the coin and decides between the two. It's closer to a 50-50 shot rather than a giant difference. It also is on the flip side. So if you have a huge lead on somebody and they've just put in the minimum amount of points, the minimum you have to have on a player to be considered in their top 3 or their top 2, you have to put at least 40 points. 40 points on a player. If the second place team has 25% or fewer points towards that player, you'll get a 90-10 split. A 90-10 split. So UNC puts 200 points on Ewers. Rice only has 50. That would be a 90-10 split in favor of North Carolina.
Yeah, and we did this obviously with a bunch of people bringing that up, and Kane, yeah, it was Carl. We both pointed at him. He brought that up, and we agree with him. And a lot of that came down to something they explained to us, which again, me and Garrett didn't get a chance to look at the sheets like they did. Now, and those two, Carl and Boz, talked about this a lot, and the fact that there was a lot of teams that unfortunately last year may have ended up getting screwed in the fact that they were right there neck and neck with each other, but because this team had a couple more points than the other one, they got the 70% chance. And now we did see a lot in both leagues at times that didn't work out for the top team regardless. But this way it kind of gives, especially if you get something where it's too really close, and that third team has just been putting in, as Carl said, the minimum amount of points and just barely squeaks in. Not necessarily as good a shot to get as one of those top 2 teams, because we did see that a lot last year as well. Teams that were that 10% that maybe put the bare minimum in ended up getting that guy, and those other 2 guys were like throwing in points weekly as much as they could on those guys. So we're hoping that this will eliminate some of those top teams getting screwed. It'll still happen, and I know that part sucks. Again, you guys saw, well, you didn't see it. Carl and Boz are the ones who actually got to see me freaking out on camera, but you heard me getting upset when that happened. It happened to a bunch of us. It's still going to happen, unfortunately. You know, there's not much we want to do with that. We do feel like that's the realistic part of it. It sucks, but at times I think it's kind of fun if you're the other team that ends up winning them, but I think this will eliminate it happening so much. And this was kind of Carl's idea when him and Boz talked about that. So yes, I agree, Kane. It was a great idea. We're excited to hopefully see if this makes things a little bit better next year.
Fingers crossed. It will also help because we will be announcing how many points each player has towards them when they commit. We debated announcing it beforehand, but it's not a video game. As much as this kind of is, it's a fantasy game, because opposing coaches like Nick Saban doesn't know how many points Lincoln Riley's put on a player or Ryan Day's put on a player. So we're keeping it that way because it would completely flip how everybody recruited. Yeah. So we want to keep it this way. I think the recruiting workshop will definitely help teams as well to level the playing field. And I think this will as well, so people understand the bonuses and how they can reach the recruits that they want and the recruits that are most interested in their program, because that is a thing in the NCAA game, is how interested a player is in your team.
Yeah. All right, so we're ready for the big one.
The big one.
Actually, also real quick, this year I'm gonna be copying Carl's sheets last year. Yeah. I definitely liked his better than mine, so I made mine earlier. So
League Two doesn't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they have no idea. But so it'll go to a couple people brought up in the sheets that they wanted everybody to have the same table or the same sheet. That will happen now moving forward. Both Carl and Boz will have the same sheet. So if you somehow manage to see what League Two is working with compared to League One, it'll all be the same now. Everybody will have the same one. I will ring before we get up to the other big one. A couple people brought up wanting to be on the show with us at times. That is perfectly cool with us. I didn't know how many people could actually come on, because I felt I work very weird hours, so I'm not sure who's all available to actually come on during this time. But if that's something you guys want to do, let us know. We'd be more than happy to have you guys on. I'm even willing to do different shows another show at a different time of the week if people want to come on, talk different things about a big matchup. Maybe you just beat out someone on a big recruit. Like, I'm all for doing this as much as you guys want to do. So if it's something where you guys want to do something, you guys come on a different day. If Carl and Boz are available too, I have no life, so I can do it whenever. My wife is not here. She hates me, so I can do it whenever. You guys just let us know, but we're all for more people coming on. You could come on multiple times during the year if you want. Doesn't matter. We'll figure out a way to get all that set up, but we would love to have more people on with us throughout the season. So that was another thing. So for the big thing now.
Well, on the topic that you're talking about of having people on the program, Boz and I will know Monday whether or not a team is in on a big recruit, which would be a perfect opportunity for UCSD to come on or someone else. Or if those teams are fighting over the same recruit and you're both available, that would be great to have you both on. And then we get to see that live reaction of the win and the L. But guess what? It may not fully be an L for you because coming to the program in 2021, you now have the ability to flip a recruit from a rival school in the program.
Yeah.
But you also have the ability to lock in a recruit. So a lot of people mentioned they wanted to be able to lock in a recruit to start the year, kind of like in the game where a guy commits right away. We thought about this a lot. We chatted a lot about it, but there's no true fair way of doing that without favoring some teams over another based on the recruits. So instead, the locks will work like this. Each team in the program can lock in one of their recruits. The player has to have committed to your team during their recruitment process. So you won them on that week's commitment show. You submit your lock player to the commissioner of your league 1 week before National Signing Day. So say you get, I can't say Quinn because everybody knows he's going to be the lock for that team. But say you get Egbuka and Sam Heward, and you're right there. You get Egbuka week 2, and you're like, oh, I got to lock him in. And then you get Heward like week 8. Then you have a debate on your hands, and you're like, oh, I think I want Heward instead. So you submit your locks the week before National Signing Day. And how you do it is you message the respective commissioner, and then they will submit a list of lock players to the Discord once they have everybody's lock recruit. So there isn't this message, this message, this message. The lock recruits we can pin then as one message.
So on the, and why we're doing it this way, because a couple people brought up wanting to do like figuring out a way to do almost like you would do a typical rookie draft in dynasty leagues where, the worst team gets to pick this. And our biggest concern with that is you're likely losing the top 12 prospects then, because you're not going to have someone taking like Austin, who is big on I don't remember the kid, Lonnie. Lonnie. I can't remember.
White.
Yeah, Lonnie White. Austin's not going to pick Lonnie White as his lock. He's going to go for Egbuka, Heward, Travion. And so we didn't want everybody to lose out on those top guys because those top 12 picks go. So you still get a guy and you can lock them. With the flipping thing, it's only going to happen once a year. Everybody gets one flip. And it'll happen on signing day. We didn't want to have flips going on all the time and this and that. And what Carl is talking about, I used a Heward and Egbuka thing when we talked. And so I know PJ, who was in here commenting just a minute ago, went very heavily on Heward and Egbuka like I did. And I won both of them. And he wanted at least one, if not both of them as well. What that allows him to do now is put his flip in for one of those guys. And he gets his one flip. He chooses Egbuka. I lock in Heward. Right before signing day. Now PJ has a chance to win Egbuka. It is a 50-50 shot. Unless Boz were to do the same thing, then it would go to I guess 25, 33. Yeah, that's why I'm not good at math. 33. But now every team only gets one, and to eliminate teams like Rice or North Carolina or Maryland last year, or who was it in League One? I forgot that did a really good job. USF, and to eliminate people all going after them because they got those top recruits, a program can only lose a max of 2 recruits on flip day. So, and this will be first come, first serve. So Kane got all those wide receivers. Whomever the first two are to submit their flips to Carl at that point, because Carl is League One's commissioner, those are going to be the first two. So say Boz and I do it, and then PJ comes in 2 weeks later, Carl will let PJ know, hey, sorry, Kane's already had 2 flips on his team. He cannot lose anybody else. And that doesn't mean he's going to lose them either. It's a 50-50 shot. He could get re-rolled on both of them, and they both stay. But this is a way to kind of give people who are still in on a recruit a shot to get that. And it goes to what I talked about earlier. You have to be a top 3 team. So that's why that matters when Carl and Boz let you guys know, hey, these are the top 3 teams on this prospect. You cannot have just been a guy who put 5 points on a guy at 1 point and then stopped. You had
or
to
none.
Or none. You had to have finished as a top 3 team in on that prospect to be able to flip them on signing day, just like you see in real life. Guys go up to the podium and everybody's like, oh, this kid's picking LSU. He's already verbally committed, and then he flips and goes to Alabama at the podium. That's what this kind of is. So hang on here.
Yep. Okay, so Kane, that's a great question. And we figured out why it's going to stay 50-50. I was actually the one who was going, shouldn't it be the percentage it was before? However, if you lose a recruit via flip, you get 150 recruiting points from that school the following offseason. Yeah. So they lose 150 recruiting points, but they get Sam Heward. You lose Sam Heward, but you get 150 recruiting points, which have no rules on them, no limits. Just like if you win your bowl game, you get that 50. Here you get 150. So you could take all 150 plus your 50 max that you can spend, and you could put 200 on a guy you really want the next season. And regardless of bonuses, that's going to be a hell of a start on that recruit.
So we're hoping that when doing that, it will lessen the sting, because it's still going to hurt. Obviously, the way I brought it up on the call, and then why we decided to do the points thing is if I think I got a book, I think back in like week 2 or week 3 of the program, me thinking I have him all year, and then going into week 16 of the signing day show, and then I ended up losing him to PJ. While I jokingly was pissed off most of the time, I did get pretty pissed. That's going to hurt. That's going to suck knowing, hey, I got this top wide receiver all year, and then he ends up flipping. But 150 points to then throw down on a guy like Quinn Ewers, that now I just gave myself a massive advantage over anybody else in there, unless Boz lost out on somebody else who might have done the same thing. So it does give you a little bit of an advantage in the next recruiting class. And as Carl mentioned, it's the same thing as that 50 points. You don't even have to use it all on one player. It's 150 extra recruiting points you can use however you like on whomever you like. You could go 50 extra on all these different guys, whatever you want, but you have those extra 50 points. But yeah, the reason we wanted to do 50-50, Kane, is it just, was there a reason behind that, Carl? I honestly don't remember that part.
Of doing the 50-50 is just an even chance, because that's quite a bit to give up, is that 150 recruiting points. Because if you think that team's starting out with 850 the next season instead of that 1,000. Yeah. So, they're taking a risk. You're feeling a little hurt here, but that's also why we put in the locks, is so that you don't lose 2 of your top guys.
Yeah.
So
you get to keep one of yours.
I have a question about that. So if you go in and you submit a flip, but you miss out on the guy, like the 50-50 stays with the same guy who had him, are you still giving up that 150?
No. It's only if you lose the prospect. Only if you lose the prospect do you lose the recruiting points, because you just got something that you didn't technically have. So then that's our way to kind of balance out that person just losing that top prospect. Because we all know it's not, nobody's going after no offense, Austin, the Lonnie Whites of the world. They're going after the Travion Hendersons, the Sam Hewards, the Amuka Abukas. That's who they're going after. And that's why, again, like Carl said, we give you that lock before signing day. Everybody is allowed to submit to their commissioner their one lock, like, hey, I don't want to lose Heward. That's the guy that I'm locking in no matter what. Nobody can flip him. And then if someone has already submitted a flip on them, Carl will let them know, hey, that's who Matt chose to lock. Yep. You're going to have to choose somebody else. And that's unfortunately just going to be part of it. But everybody will get that one lock, the guy you cannot lose no matter what, but then everybody else is up for it. And again, you don't have to use it if you don't want to. Maybe, again, with a Quinn Ewers, or maybe there's a bunch of guys that you like in a coming class, and you're like, you know what, I don't want to risk losing that 150 points. You don't have to flip anybody, but it gives you the opportunity to get that guy like I hate using this example because we all know Shane, for in the most part, kind of got screwed out of Travion Henderson there. It gives Shane now the chance to go back and get him now with the flip. And like, hey, I was a top school on him. I want my another shot at him right there. And you got your chance to get him back.
If you are trying to flip somebody, do not post it in the group chat. We want to keep flips silent so that the only people who know are literally Boz and myself. Matt won't even know.
I won't even know. Yeah.
So Boz and I will be the only ones who know. We aren't going to share that information with each other. We're not going to share it with Matt. It will literally be, I know all the League One ones. He'll know all the League Two ones. And then come National Signing Day, we're hoping for pandemonium.
Yeah. I'll find out.
Crazy.
I'll find out after signing day's done as I have to go in and type that stuff up. And then you'll see me get pissed if I've got a bunch of prospects on there. But
and you can only flip one recruit.
Yeah.
But 2 recruits can get flipped from your team.
Yeah.
If say you don't lock in Quinn Ewers and number 2 and number 3 both want to flip him, that only counts as one player being flipped from your team, but then the split would be that 33, 33, 33. So even if you're in third, you can still flip that guy.
Yeah.
But you have to be those top 3.
Yeah.
And I think the next big recruit coming up has got to be Arch Manning, because Quinn Ewers he'll be in this class.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll be in this class. So and that's why Carl said earlier that they'll be announcing the top 3 because they'll have record of that as well. So you can't go in and do, which I guess now we can admit it because you can't do it anymore. But things that me and Carl, well, there was other people who did it too, but in the final recruiting sheet, I didn't do it. I feel like Carl really sandbagged the process. I at least put 10 points toward everybody. I didn't put 1, but you can't.
I was not alone.
You cannot go in and put 10 points toward a prospect and flip them. You have to be a top 3 team, which means you were in on them pretty much the whole time. So that's kind of our fair way of doing it. We didn't want anybody to just be like, oh, well, you know what? I really wasn't recruiting Ibuka, but I kind of like the kid. I want to flip him now. You have to be a top 3 team. So each team can only have 2 recruits. Yes, at max, PJ. And again, that may not – you're going to, I'm sure at some point, assuming this happens for multiple years, which I hope, because I really do enjoy this league, there's probably going to be some years where, say, well, I'll just use Carl as an example because he had a bunch of recruits this year. He may have had 2 guys, if we had this in place last year, go, hey, I want to flip these 2 guys at Carl's team, and then neither flips. He wins both re-rolls, and he keeps them. But then the next year, he loses both of them. And again, why that's going to suck for Carl, he's also about to get 300 extra points toward that
I can put all towards one guy.
Yeah. Toward the new, I don't even know the kids or his name already jumped out of it. Archie Manning. He could throw all that toward Archie Manning right there and immediately almost you can't say locks him up, but almost locks that kid up because
that
he just
would
put
be
300 points on him. Yeah. So it's a fair way, we think, to balance it. It still gives everybody a shot of trying to get their guy if they lost out on in the recruiting process without having to really trade for him. But again, you will take a little bit of a hit as well because you will lose recruiting points when you do that. So hopefully everybody is cool with that. We know a couple people suggested that, if we're being honest, and that's not quite that way of doing it, but we felt like that's the fairest way of doing it because we didn't, like I said, we didn't want to do any kind of draft or anything like that led to the top 12 prospects being off the board and then nobody has a shot except for the team that got them. So in our opinion, the fairest way of trying to allow recruits to be flipped gives a little bit of drama on signing day as well, because as Carl mentioned, Carl and Boz are going to be the only 2 guys that know how many, if any, prospects are about to be flipped and how that's going to happen. All you'll know as the owner of one of these teams is the guy you locked in for sure. You can't lose. And again, that has to happen. And we'll remind you guys, Carl and Boz will remind you guys as well, that will have to be submitted before signing day. That's not something where whoever wins Quinn Ewers, I'm sure if I win Quinn Ewers, that's going to be the guy. I don't give a damn who else I get. But it's not something, if you lock in a guy that you really like, you have to announce that day. It has to come a week before signing day. So if you win a bunch of recruits throughout the process, you can try and then decide, okay, well, this is the guy I really want to keep. Because the process I brought up to Carl, which I know he mentioned, was I had won Ibuka early on, but then I won Heward 3 weeks later. If I would have used my lock on Ibuka, but then it's like, man, I really actually would have rather keep Heward. We don't want you guys to keep sending messages to Carl and Boz every week. No, I changed it. I want to lock this guy in. No, wait, I want to lock this guy in. Just send it once at one point and you're good.
Exactly. And the minimum, I mentioned it before, but the minimum to be in on a recruit is 40 points. So on the last week of the season, you got to put at least 40 on any guy who you haven't recruited if you want to be considered for his final teams, which will in turn make our National Signing Day show that much shorter, allowing us to focus on the flips and to put both leagues on the same day.
Yeah, because that way we don't have 100 guys committing because Carl and Matt put like only a couple points toward each guy, so they had a chance to win them. So
hey, that
ended up working.
I just want to say that's Boz's fault for not knowing the rules. I'm just kidding, because I did it too with Matt.
Well, I mean, hey, I wrote the bylaws and I still forgot that and put 10 points on everybody. And
hey, I'm not
innocent
either.
So.
I threw some $1 bids. When I saw Carl doing it, I was like, that works.
There was a bunch of people who did it when we went back and looked at it. You could tell, like I went back and looked at the Carl sent me the thing. There was a bunch of guys who did go in and do it. So we weren't the only ones. They just didn't do it as bad as, so I literally did it on everybody. I didn't put points for anybody.
Thankfully, anybody who I may have stolen with a 1 bid is going to your team come cut down day. So don't worry. Maven Anderson, he's going to the right school. I think that's Hawaii. So definitely the wrong school. And Bryson Nesbitt is going to UNC.
All right. So I think, is that everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I will be sending out a form on Discord. So fill that out. Let us know your thoughts on the rule changes. Let us know if you want to stay in the program. We get it. It's not a league for everybody. It's very unique, a lot of fun. But if it's not for you, that's fine. No hard feelings either way. And then we want to see if you guys want to pay Boz and I for all the hard work we do.
Yeah. And so I will say this too. I don't know, Raju, if you're still watching, you guys brought up when can we start recruiting? The other big thing is we will not start recruiting for the next year until we're able to sit down and do the recruiting workshop, because a lot of people brought up wanting to go in on that. So I do want to be able to put that out before we do anything. What I'll do, and I didn't talk to Carl about this beforehand, but I'll say it now so everybody can hear it, and I'm sure he can do it. When he sends out that sheet, I'll have him put on a thing if you'd like to be on that day. In case there's a specific question you'd like to ask and you're not in the chat, I'm more than fine with having a bunch of other people on here, because I'm going to let them kind of handle it. Because I'm going to be honest, I just kind of threw darts at the board. I didn't really have any specific strategy. Maybe other people have certain strategies. We can bring on whomever. We'll figure out a day that works better for as many people as we can, and get everybody on there to do that at once before we worry about recruiting for the 2021 season.
Yeah, I think we might do it as like a Zoom call so everybody can be involved who wants to be there. You can ask questions back and forth, and I think we can record a Zoom call too.
Yes, you can.
We can save it for anybody who wasn't there, who wants to listen in, or if you want to go back and be like, I know this was during that. And the other thing is check out Boz's new podcast up next. He has probably the worst guest to start it out, but it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, make sure to, download, rate, subscribe, and review.
Yeah, it's way better than the Devi debate.
Definitely. That show fucking sucks. It's only because of the one guy who yells at everybody.
Well, yeah.
He's a massive
that guy who always mutes himself.
Yeah. Well, that guy too. That guy's a joke. I don't even know if he's still in here. But yeah, so that'll take care of everything. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us and let us know. I mean, again, if everybody kicks back on some of these rules, we won't put them in place. It's not something it's dead set, but it was a couple things people brought up in the sheets we thought could spice things up a little bit, make it a little bit more fun. Enough people suggested things that's why we talked about it. We had Garrett on as well. We talked about with him a little bit on as well, because he's obviously one of the big creators of the league. And but if it's something, if 90% of you guys come back and say you don't like the flipping idea, we won't put it in. It's not something we're set in stone. I mean, we talked a lot about it, and we think we got it to a point that we think is pretty cool. But I mean, this is your guys' league as well, and we want to keep it as fun for everybody as possible. So if you guys don't like it, let us know. Right. We won't put it in there, but please answer those as quick as you guys can with once Carl sends those out, so we can kind of get things moving. And we'll probably take a week off or so with everything, and then we'll come back in probably the beginning of February with all the other stuff, and we'll kind of get moving with off-season stuff, recruiting. And the workshop and all that stuff moving forward. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's made this league as fun as it has been. Yes. It's been a lot of fun. I hope nobody wants to leave, but again, as Carl said, we understand. It's definitely, I mean, we saw that earlier in this year with someone that they liked the idea, but it was just too much work. We understand because it can be a lot of work. So let us know if you guys would like to leave so that we can start working on recruiting ourselves and bringing somebody else in. Other than that, Carl, Boz, you guys got anything else?
We're good. Yeah, it was a fun year. I'm excited for year 2. Definitely with these rules.
To you guys. You guys do a lot of work as the commissioners.
So thank you. Yeah, definitely thanks
buddy.
to Carl and Boz because y'all put in you guys put in a ton of work. They make what I do easy because I don't do any of the shit they do. I just do this shit right here. So I just copy
Carl.
We appreciate it. All right,